This is Gala Avery reporting to you from inside the Video Archive Cinema Club, the 20-seat secret cinema located within the Vista. Today, I am joined by Video Archive Cinema Club manager Matt Landsman to chat about the calendar for the week of Monday, November 19th. Hey, Matt.
Welcome back, Gala.
Thank you. Thank you. So, let's start out by doing one of my favorite things about the month. Let's talk a little bit about this calendar design.
So we're looking over the November print calendar now, and I gotta say, this one was a bit of a challenge for me to put together from a visual standpoint because I always try to make the calendars as visually pleasing as possible. And frankly, a lot of these 1930s and 40s movies didn't have a lot of high res poster art available. So I had to painstakingly restore and up-res a lot of these images so that they would come out in as good of quality as possible on the print calendar. And I put a lot of love and care into this one to try to not just represent the movie's titles, but get a little picture on almost every square there.
This is one of the things that I love about these calendars is that every single movie I look at, I kind of get a feel for what the movie is and if it would be interesting to me, if it's funny, if it's scary, if it's English language, if it's foreign, etc.
I had a lot of fun putting this front page together. Like I said, it was a bit of a challenge from a layout standpoint, and a lot of these movies just don't have a lot of great art out there for them. I loved making the square for Fever Pitch with Ryan O'Neal because for that one, I actually scanned and upresed the image of Ryan O'Neal from a foreign VHS release because the typical theatrical poster for Fever Pitch is almost all black and very hard to see. And it's just sort of this image of Ryan O'Neal holding up a dice that's uh, just very hard on the eyes from a condensed calendar standpoint. So I had fun putting that one together.
And that one plays on November 27th. It's a 2 p.m. matinee on 16 millimeters. So we'll be talking about that more detail on an upcoming episode of this show.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that one more, but I'll say now that you should get your tickets to that one because that movie never plays anywhere and it's almost impossible to see. And it's a rare 16 millimeter screening and it's not streaming anywhere. So make sure to get your tickets for Fever Pitch.
And you get those tickets at
VistaTheaterHollywood.com.
awesome. What's another highlight on this calendar for you?
From a visual standpoint, I really liked making the squares for Busting and Capricorn 1 because I liked getting Elliot Gould on there. I'm a big fan of him as an actor. For Beau Geste with Ronald Colman, that one was a bit of a challenge because it's such an old film that, frankly, there just isn't a lot of high res art of it out there and available. So it took a bit of work to clean up and restore some of those images, but I had a lot of fun doing it. And it's always sort of like a puzzle making these every month.
And one of my favorite things about the calendar, though, this time around is actually on the back. I love how Franco Guerrero from The One Armed Executioner is up there. Explore genre film and favorites Friday and Saturday this month at midnight. And he's just there with his one arm because he's the one armed executioner. It's just really, really cool. It's a really nice addition. It's a really nice graphic. And I love also how you have all the pictures, right? But then on the back, you also have it just in list form.
Yeah, that's so it's just easier for people to look at when the shows are playing and which ones are paired together, just so it's clear if they weren't already clear on the front page. And it just sort of lays things out in a text format if you prefer to get your information that way.
Well, that wraps up us talking about the calendar. You guys know that you guys can always pick up a hard copy when they are printed at the Vista Hollywood
Or at Pam's Coffee.
or at Pam's Coffee. Now for this week. So, you may remember that we discussed the overall theme for November, but there have been some changes to the calendar, and I am so excited to announce a few of these titles. But before the breakdown for the titles this week, there is one showtime next week that Matt and I want to highlight.
I really want to call attention to the John Howard tribute that we're doing on November 30th. It's our last show of the month. It starts at 7 p.m. and it's a special tribute to an actor that Quentin really, really loves. And that's the great John Howard, who of course played Bulldog Drummond more than any other actor. So we're starting off with Bulldog Drummond Comes Back, and then we're following that up with A Tragedy at Midnight, and then we're following it up with Texas Rangers Ride Again. All three of these movies star John Howard, and this is just a really special screening that has probably never happened before in history and will never happen again. And I can tell you that this is one that Quentin feels very strongly about, and he loves John Howard. Out of all the actors who played Bulldog Drummond, and we watched several Bulldog Drummond films back in April, John Howard was definitely his favorite.
And we are going to get more into that triple feature in next week's episode, but we just wanted to highlight that because tickets may sell out pretty quick. And as always, you can get your tickets at
VistaTheaterHollywood.com.
Now, let's talk about this week. So, to start off the week on Tuesday, the 19th at 2 p.m., we have Dodge City. And let me tell you, this is my pick of the week. Errol Flynn stars in this, Matt. And Errol Flynn is just so freaking handsome. I'm going to be honest. The moment that I saw him on screen, I was just absolutely overwhelmed. And you know that I love a really good Western, and I could not believe that this one had slipped through the cracks for me. It's directed by Michael Curtiz, so you know that it's going to be an incredibly well-made, crafted movie. Like everyone that's working on this is firing on all cylinders. You'll see this with Errol Flynn and his on-screen chemistry with Olivia de Havilland, who he's been, I think, in like 8 films with.
This is the third of 9 movies that they did together that we're showing at the Video Archive Cinema Club. This is actually the 5th one that they did together, but it pairs really nicely with The Adventures of Robin Hood, which we showed last week. And that one was also directed by Michael Curtiz. And back in June, we showed The Charge of the Light Brigade, which was also directed by him and stars them both. So someday maybe we'll get to Captain Blood or one of their other collaborations, but they were very famous on-screen partners together, and I'm really happy that we're doing yet another one of their films.
And of course, it's going to be on VHS. I think this is one of the original tapes from Video Archives, and it is going to be a CBS Fox video. And if you know anything about that, oh, it's like one of those wonderful little trays. Oh, I'm sliding it open right now. It's amazing. I love this and the art on the front, but you know the quality is going to be good. It's a nice heavy tape. This has some of the craziest action that like I've ever seen in a Western movie, specifically 2 scenes, and I don't want to give anything away for the audience that hasn't seen it yet. But there's a moment, the first one has like a ton of cattle, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But the cattle scene towards the beginning is shocking. It's just like, I don't know how else to describe it without giving it away, so I'm not going to. And the other scene that was just so amazing, honestly, involves a horse stunt. And if you've heard me talk on Video Archives, you'll know that I'm not really always super into horse stunts. But this stunt is so magnificent, just the artistry of how it's done. You can tell that everyone who is working on this scene is an expert.
I also wanted to add that after what we talked about with Robin Hood, where Michael Curtiz and Errol Flynn didn't get along because of some of the safety stuff, and they didn't get along apparently on Charge of the Light Brigade because of the horse stuff. Amazingly, they worked together yet again on this movie a year after The Adventures of Robin Hood. So I'm glad they squashed the beef and were able to get this one in the can.
As am I. And I also learned that this is like where the phrase get out of Dodge comes from Dodge City.
How about that?
I know, isn't that crazy?
It was also the primary inspiration for Blazing Saddles,
Oh my God,
the
of course.
classic comedy.
And I grew up loving that and watching that. So if you want to come and experience Dodge City with an audience, come on Tuesday the 19th at 2 p.m. Trust me, you will not regret it. This is my pick of the week.
So that brings us to Sullivan's Travels, which we're playing on Wednesday, November 20th at 2 p.m. And I picked this one because this is a movie that I've loved for a long time. Preston Sturges wrote and directed this movie. He sold the script, and he wrote it with Joel McCrea in mind. And Joel McCrea had so much fun making this movie that he said he would have done it for free, even though it did make him a lot of money. It's actually one of Steven Spielberg's favorite films, and Veronica Lake co-stars in it with McCrea. And a fun fact about that is that she was actually pregnant the entire time this movie was filmed. It opens with a very special dedication, which I'm going to read for you guys out loud. To the memory of those who made us laugh, the motley mountebanks, the clowns, the buffoons, in all times and in all nations, whose efforts have lightened our burden a little, this picture is affectionately dedicated. So this is a movie about a director who wants to stop making silly, stupid comedies and immerse himself in making a serious film. in which he plays a hobo. So he's making a movie about a hobo, and to learn the hobo lifestyle or the tramp lifestyle, he starts living as one. And he learns so much about life along the way. Of course, it's named after Gulliver's Travels, the classic story. And I just love that we're doing more stuff with Preston Sturges. Of course, the Lady Eve was also Sturges, and you can see that on the big screen of the Vista this month. And what's funny is the movie that he's trying to make within the movie, the fictional movie, is a book that he's trying to adapt called Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which ended up being the name of the great Coen Brothers movie. So this movie really just has everything. I think it's pretty funny, but it also has a lot of heart to it. I was pretty blown away the first time I experienced this movie about 5 or 6 years ago. And it turns out that it's just this beloved immortal classic, and it's considered by many to be one of the greatest movies of all time. And if you haven't seen it, you got to see it. It's just one of those maybe slightly overlooked in a modern context movies that everybody should see at some point in their life. It's going to fill you up, it's going to fill you with warm Thanksgiving feelings. So I highly recommend this one. And when I knew that we were playing movies from the 30s and 40s this month, I had to get this on there.
Fun fact, but this is actually the last movie my dad ever logged on Letterboxd.
Now, let me ask you this. When you first saw it, did you see it on a VHS tape or a Laserdisc?
I think I saw it just on a DVD,
Okay.
maybe a Blu-ray. You know me, I kind of don't differentiate between DVD and Blu-ray.
Right. But I know that you grew up flipping over Laserdiscs
I
also.
did. But I think there's a nice like Criterion version of this, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, which is actually, I'll admit, how I first experienced it.
Yeah, but we are going to be playing the tape here, aren't we?
Yes, this is a VHS screening from the original Video Archives collection. So that is November 20th at 2 p.m. Sullivan's Travels, a great movie with Joel McCrea and Veronica Lake. Don't miss it.
Then we have our first double of the week, which is on Thursday the 21st at 7 p.m. We have Hollywood Story and Caught.
Hollywood Story. This is directed by the great master of in-theater gags, William Castle, and this was before his gag era. But the reason why this one is such a great pick for this month is because it's actually about the murder of a silent film director. And we're playing a lot of silent films this month at Video Archives. We're playing Peter Pan, we're playing The Mark of Zorro, we're playing Beau Geste, and those are all silent films. And this is about the murder of a silent film director, and they actually show clips from the original Lon Chaney Phantom of the Opera in this movie. And it stars Richard Conte and Julie Adams. We've seen Julie Adams now in a couple of Video Archives movies. She was in The Creature from the Black Lagoon. She popped up in Black Roses, which we showed last month. But this is basically Paramount attempting to cash in on Sunset Boulevard. So film historians have said that this movie is based on the murder of silent film director William Desmond Taylor. In this case, he's been renamed to Franklin Ferrera. And ironically, they say it's a crazy story about Ferreras. Maybe someday someone will make a movie about it. So you got to imagine when they first played that in theaters, that line got a laugh. But it's a great noir. It fits the noir-vember theme perfectly. Richard Conte, who was also in Whirlpool with Gene Tierney, is really great in this. And of course, he's in The Godfather and a ton of mob movies later in his career. But I'm a big William Castle fan, and I was excited when this one was picked for the calendar. And also, if you're trying to get in the mood for the season, there's a really great scene where they're at a Christmas parade. So it's technically sort of a Christmas movie. Also, because this is such like an inside baseball movie where they're talking about the silent films and they're walking around on film lots, they made sure to film this movie at Chaplin Studios. So Charlie Chaplin, I think, was a little hesitant to let them film there, but they got it done, and it adds a lot of flavor to the movie. And I just think this is like a great noir pick. So one thing I wanted to highlight about Hollywood Story is that this is our first ever DVD screening at the Video Archive Cinema Club. And the reason for that is because some of these movies are just really hard to see otherwise, unless there is a 16 millimeter print that we have access to or a VHS from the Video Archives collection, then that is the way that you're going to have to see these movies on hard media. And we are committed to physical media in this space. So in this case, there was no actual VHS release in the US for Hollywood Story. So we're actually using Jules' copy of the movie on DVD. And I think that that will play really nicely in this space. And I've tested how DVDs look on this space. And I think that they fit the aesthetic really nicely. And I think that people should not skip this one because of the format.
Especially also because second on the double billing is Caught, which we are showing on a Republic Pictures VHS, which I also believe is an original Video Archives tape from this sticker on the front. Okay, guys, if you're going to be watching Caught, don't read the description on Letterbox, and honestly, don't even read the back of the box because it kind of is misleading. This movie, they present it as this kind of like love versus money thing where like this woman is trying to choose like between these two lives that she may be able to leave and she's caught in the middle of them. But there's something way more interesting going on in this movie. It is from director Max Ophuls, who obviously you guys are going to know, but the movie that I want to highlight that he directed is The Exile because both Quentin and Roger love this movie with its windmill scene.
We showed The Exile on a beautiful 16 millimeter print back in June. And there's other Video Archives connections to this movies. For instance, this movie co-stars Robert Ryan, who was in Beware My Lovely, which we showed a couple months back. And you can see Robert Ryan this month as part of the John Howard triple feature in Texas Rangers Ride Again.
One movie that I really love Robert Ryan in is something that I saw at the New Beverly last year, which is Odds Against Tomorrow. It also stars Harry Belafonte, and I really, really liked that movie. And I really like Robert Ryan. He's always playing these kind of like gruff male characters that kind of just don't give a damn. And he captures that exactly in this. And then, of course, the woman in the middle of these two men is Barbara Bel Geddes, and you have James Mason playing this kind of like well-to-do. Well, he's not well-to-do. He's well-meaning. He's a well-meaning doctor. And it's a really interesting story about class and also like what you will do for that mink coat. What are you going to do to achieve what you desire? What is important in life?
It's sort of a money isn't everything story.
It is a money isn't everything story, but at the same time, it isn't. It's very difficult to explain what the heart of this movie is unless you see it. One thing I will, though, just say is that this deals with a lot of adult themes. This movie goes places that you're not going to be expecting a movie from this time period to go, especially when it comes to like women's rights and like her bodily autonomy, etc. It's a fascinating story. And the other thing, and you can kind of see it on the front of this box, but there's a theme of pinball in this movie that one may not be expecting. And I just always love when you kind of find an oddball aspect of a movie like pinball. You would not expect pinball to be in this, but it does play a major, major role.
And I just wanted to read this little poem, which James Mason wrote about Max Ophuls after working with him twice, because Ophuls was known for his really distinctive tracking shots. So James Mason actually wrote, "A shot that does not call for tracks is agony for poor dear Max, who, separated from his dolly, is wrapped in deepest melancholy. Once when they took away his crane, I thought he'd never smile again."
That's a great, that actually reminds me, there are a few really interesting tracking shots, like where you're kind of tracking through doorways in this movie. And one of them I actually went, huh, wow, like that's like they're doing cinema and like you can see it on the screen. And I thought the black and white was really beautiful. And I just think you definitely should come and see it. So again, that is Thursday, the 21st at 7 p.m. Hollywood Story and Caught. Hey, Matt, I think it's time for a snack break.
Sounds like we should go to the lobby.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
And we are back. Matt, I just ran into one of our regulars, Jack, in the snack line. He recommended to me to get a small popcorn, no butter, and a Te Java tea. Have you had one of those, Matt?
I actually haven't had the Te Java teas yet, but they're really small and they look very chuggable. So I think I could get one with very few regrets.
And Jack also told me that if you really want to go wild with one of these movies, make sure to get those dark chocolate raisinets, which are also one of Roger's favorite snacks to get when he comes.
And I also have to say, they now have vegetarian I believe, Impossible Nuggets at Pam's Coffee,
Oh, no way,
which is
really?
hard for me to resist.
That'd be hard for me to resist too. So I'm really, really excited to hear about that. I guess I'm going to have to get that next time I come to see a show, which may be Friday the 22nd's 7 p.m. double feature, Horse Feathers and the Coconuts.
And this is a Marx Brothers double feature. This is the first time we've ever shown something featuring the four great Marx Brothers, Groucho, Harpo, Chico, and Zeppo. And it was adapted from some of their stage comedies, Horse Feathers was, and it's known mostly for the song Everyone Says I Love You, which was used actually later on as the title of a Woody Allen movie. But this one is really, really funny. In particular, of course, the great Groucho Marx is amazing in this movie. So we have the original Video Archives tape here, which is an MCA home video release. And to kick us off in talking about this, let's have Gala read the back of the box for us.
Gimme, gimme, gimme. Oh, goody. It is an easy to read one because it is black on yellow, not the other way around. Horse Feathers, it is 1 hour and 7 minutes, black and white, not rated. The quintessential Marx Brothers comedy. Groucho, Harpo, Chico, and yes, Zeppo are at their manic peak in this uproariously anarchic parody of college life. As the fun-loving president of Huxley College, Groucho tries to keep the student body in line while attempting to keep his own body near a flirtatious floozy, played by Thelma Todd, who is secretly trying to rig the big football game between Huxley and the arch-rival Darwin University. Plot aside, and it usually is, Horse Feathers contains some of the greatest sequences in a movie comedy history, including a classic schoolroom shootout between Groucho and students Harpo and Chico, as well as an unforgettable football game finale. Other gems include each brother offering his personal rendition of Everyone Says I Love You, and a speak-easy sequence that will forever give new meaning to the word swordfish. The fourth and perhaps funniest Marx Brothers comedy boasts a script by immortal humorist S.J. Perelman, songs by Bert Kalmar and Harry Ruby, including Groucho's theme, I'm Against It, and direction by the great Norman McLeod.
I have to call out the No Matter What It Is, I'm Against It song. This song is stuck in my head after watching this movie. And I actually thought of you while listening to this song as well. I feel like you would really get a kick out of it. I don't know. Just the no matter what it is, I am against it. I found that to be really charming.
It's a song for haters.
Yeah, that's why I thought of you. But
I like that we're having two movies so far this week where titles of either songs or the movies that they're playing have been made into movies by other filmmakers, like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou,
Right.
and this Woody Allen movie.
That's a good connection. And like we said, in Hollywood Story, they're showing clips from other movies, and there's silent films being reused. So there's a lot of synchronicity.
It's referential cinema
In the calendar this week. And I wanted to explain what a couple of the terms mean in this movie. Horse Feathers itself just means like nonsense. It means just like chicanery, like saying that something is just totally asinine or buffoonish. Like that's horse feathers. And then the other term that's used in this movie is Connie Bailey, the Thelma Todd character, is referred to as a college widow. And what that means is a woman that stays in college a year after she graduates so that she can fraternize with the male students. So they're kind of
okay.
referring to her as like an easy woman.
I think on the back of the box they said floozy. Yeah, floozy.
Yeah, all of the Marx Brothers have their designs on this woman in this movie, including Groucho, who's sort of the elder professor in this movie. And it was shot at Occidental College, which is a stand-in for the fictional
That's right.
Huxley
That's where my
College.
brother went. My brother went to
I
Occidental.
was about to say, if
Yeah.
you know anybody that went to Occidental, they can check it out in Horse Feathers. And one other thing about this movie, here's why you really shouldn't sleep on this screening. You can't find this movie anywhere.
Oh my God, it is so difficult.
It's not on YouTube.
Nope.
It's not on streaming.
Nope.
So unless you're going to order your own VHS tape, you should come down to Video Archive Cinema Club and check it out here. And actually, the movie is so hard to see And you'll notice that there's like jump cuts in the movie. The
Mhm.
reason for that is because there are scenes of this that were lost. Approximately 2 minutes of this movie was just lost in splices that were left out of old film prints that were transferred to all the existing copies that are today. So it's kind of a miracle that this movie even still exists at all, and it's not totally lost media like London After Midnight or something. So that is one of the really special things that we have to offer this week.
You know what? And there's a very similar story with The Coconuts, the second movie on the double billing, because this movie also has footage missing depending on which version you watch. And I'm just going to give a little like preliminary thing. Don't watch this on YouTube. Don't be like me who didn't have a tape available to me. Um, because the version on YouTube is an incomplete version, and I think it's also at like a quicker speed. And so everyone is talking really fast, and it's just not the kind of way to watch a Marx Brothers film. You should be watching it. In my opinion, you should be watching all of these kinds of movies in a theater with an audience. So this is the very first feature film of the Marx Brothers, and we have a video archives tape of it. So I'm going to hand it over to Matt, and he's going to read the back of the box. This is an MCA home video.
And in this case, we have black text on blue. In the Marx Brothers' first feature film, Groucho portrays a hotel owner who tries to fleece everyone, from innocent bellboys and bellgirls to wealthy society matron Mrs. Potter, Margaret Dumont. Chico and Harpo play resort hotel conmen, whom Groucho recognizes instantly when their suitcase pops open empty. "We'll fill it up before we leave," Chico assures him. When Mrs. Potter discovers that her jewels are missing, Chico and Harpo rescue falsely accused hotel clerk Bob Adams, played by Oscar Shaw, find the jewels, trap the real perpetrators, and unite Bob with his sweetheart, Polly Potter, Mary Eaton. Complete with their music and lyrics by Irving Berlin and one of the first overhead shots of dancing bathing beauties, the nonstop screwball comedy includes some of the Marx Brothers' best stage routines, including Groucho's land auction, the excruciatingly funny viaduct dialogue, and Polly Potter's engagement party. And it's worth noting that this viaduct scene, which is a very famous gag in this movie, has Chico not knowing what a viaduct is when Groucho keeps saying it, and Chico keeps asking, "Why a duck?" instead of viaduct.
And it actually does get really funny with the more repetition of him asking. It's like the back of the box does a really good job of highlighting a few of those moments, specifically like the dancing bathing beauties, because that overhead shot is really gorgeous and will in later cinema be replicated with dancers and swimming pools, etc. I wanted to highlight that everything in this movie, like you get a little bit of everything. You get comedy, you get music, you get romance, you get intrigue. It's like there's just so much going on in these movies that you really go through a whole roller coaster of emotion. And I think seeing Horse Feathers and the Coconuts back to back with an audience would be a really fun time.
And rare. Like we said, you can't see them anywhere else. They rarely screen. We'll see if that opens up a little bit when they become public domain within the next 5 years there. But for now, you should check them out here at Video Archive Cinema Club on original MCA home video VHS tapes. And another fun thing to note about Coconuts is it was, like we said, one of the first sound movies. And I was reading that they actually had to pour water on like a lot of their scripts and like their paper that they had on set because the crackling of the
Oh,
pages and
yeah,
the
I've heard
wind
that
was like
too.
disrupting the sound recording, which kind of just goes to show like how far we've come technologically since these movies.
Not just that, but like, isn't that such like a Marx Brothers like gag to have to pour water on paper with words on it to like get it to stop? Like, doesn't that just seem like something that would be featured in one of their movies?
Yeah, totally.
And now for the first midnight of the week on Friday, the 22nd, we have Women in Cages. You guys will remember this has been featured on the Video Archives podcast. This was actually my very first vaulted after show. Actually, my very first after show in general. So this is after show 101.5.
Was it
And
vaulted, or you could say it was in a cage?
well, I guess it could be in a cage, but I unlocked the video vault to reveal Women in Cages. And it's directed by Cirio H. Santiago, if you want to be specific. And it stars Pam Grier, Judy Brown, and Roberta Collins. It actually one of the facts that I really like that I'm gonna share about the movie is that it's the same sets as The Big Dollhouse, directed by Jack Hill, and then Women in Cages was shot there, and then Eddie Romero's Black Mama, White Mama. And you can hear Quentin and Roger talk more in depth about this film and share their opinions and like the giant rat in the toilet moment, which just always gets me. And Quentin's love, we all know his love for Pam Grier, obviously, like Pam's Coffee is next door. But one thing that he really, really highlights in the episode is his love for Roberta Collins. So if you want to hear that, head on over to patreon.com/video archives and check out the after show number 101.5.
I also wanted to point out that a lot of our Cinema Club regulars really love Roger Corman, who passed away earlier this year, and we did an entire tribute month to Corman in June, and this was a Corman co-production. So if you liked those flavor of movies, and I know we showed movies like Caged Heat and The Hot Box, you should definitely check out this one as well. And even though Pam's Coffee will be closed at midnight, if you want a Pam's Coffee in your hand while you're watching Pam Grier on the screen, you can actually still get hot Pam's Coffee in the lobby of the Vista.
This is going to be the perfect midnight movie, honestly. Like, this is what I would want to see at midnight. It's women in prison fighting each other. Like, what more can you want from a midnight movie?
You're not alone on that one, Gala. Tickets to Women in Cages are selling out really fast, so make sure that you grab them now.
Okay, that brings us to Saturday the 23rd at 7 p.m. We have Peter Pan playing.
So I have a bit to say about this one because Peter Pan is a pretty personal story to me. And the reason for that is actually VHS. The Disney Peter Pan, the cartoon version,
Which is not what we're playing here.
was probably the first VHS that I remember having when I was a kid. And I think I still have that pretty battered clamshell somewhere in my parents' basement.
Is that your favorite Disney movie?
I wouldn't even say it's necessarily my favorite, but it left a really strong impression on me as a kid. And what's interesting is if you like that version and you know that version was directly inspired by a lot of what happens in this version. Visually, even right down to like the look of some of the characters. So this is a silent film, and it's the first ever adaptation of the play by J.M. Barrie. And it stars Betty Bronson as Pan, and Gloria Swanson and Mary Pickford wanted to play it, but J.M. Barrie chose Betty Bronson personally, and it follows the play right down to the stage directions. So I was asking myself, why is it that in so many different versions of Peter Pan, they have a girl or a woman playing Peter Pan? And the reason for that is partially just tradition, partially it was child labor laws when they did the play. They couldn't have stage actor kids working past 9 p.m. And also they wanted it to be a smaller frame, like physically on stage. They wanted it to be the frame of a girl so that she could look like a little boy.
Like a boy forever, like you're in Neverland, yeah.
And also they just kind of wanted it to feel like a more androgynous character and blur the lines on gender. So it's interesting that in this version, Wendy actually kind of says that she wants a sexual relationship with Peter, or she implies that, because he's saying, I don't know what you want from me, and Tiger Lily also wants something from me, but I just want a mom. So the mother-son dynamic is more clear in the Disney version, but in this version and in a few other versions, it's a bit more romantic, which is more true to Barry's original intentions. But another thing that's interesting about this is Douglas Fairbanks Jr., who's another Video Archives favorite who pops up in a lot of movies we've shown, had a huge crush on Betty Bronson after seeing her play Peter Pan in this movie, to the extent that he wrote her letters for years, love letters.
Oh my, really?
Yeah.
Did it work?
I don't know.
I don't think so then.
There's a disclaimer at the start of this movie about how it's a fairy play, which kind of contextualizes the whole experience. And I'm going to read that. And this was written by J.M. Barrie. The difference between a fairy play and a realistic one is that in the former, all the characters are really children with a child's outlook on life. This applies to the so-called adults of the story as well as the young people. Pull the beard off the fairy king and you would find the face of a young child. This then is the spirit of the play, and it is necessary that all of you, no matter what age you might have individually attained, should be children. Peter Pan will laughingly blow the fairy dust in your eyes, and presto, you'll all be back in the nursery, and once more you'll believe in fairies, and the play moves on.
I love that. Wow. That's the kind of play I want to be watching.
I think it really sets the stage for just some of the whimsy that this movie has. I mean, this movie is amazing. Right from the beginning, you have this actor, George Ali, playing Nana the dog, and he's a man wearing a dog suit, which he also plays the croc that eats the clock in this movie.
The Croc with the Clock.
And this was sort of like the precursor to like an Andy Serkis or Doug Jones type performance. And he was actually called the master of the quote unquote skin game. I know that sounds gross, but that's what they called like this type of like suit performance at the time. But
It's like if you were performing as like Godzilla or like one of those, eventually they do have suit performers, and eventually those would go on to become mocap artists.
it's pretty amazing because like he could operate the eyes and the mouth from inside the suit like while he was like walking on all fours. He played a bear in Midsummer Night Fancies. He played a donkey in something else. He played a baby in The Wild
A
Rose.
baby.
So because I started looking at this actor and I was like, does he just play this kind of stuff? Because he plays a really convincing dog. And Captain Hook is really great in this movie. Ernest Torrance, who played Clopin in the original Lon Chaney Hunchback. And he has a really pronounced chin, the guy who plays Hook. And I think they had to have based the look of the animated Disney one off of how he looks in this because it's like one
Is it
for
like
one,
uncanny?
sans the mustache. Yeah, and there's just like other things that you can feel the influence of this movie on other movies throughout history. Like at one point, Peter Pan is running around with a flaming bomb barrel over his head, and it's like exactly the same way Adam West is running around the dock with the bomb in the Batman 66 movie. But this movie's just really great. There's so many great moments of humor, like the dialogue really comes across. The sets are amazing. The cave that the Lost Boys live in, the pirate ship, the effects that go into Tinkerbell are like frankly amazing. I mean, this movie is 100 years old, literally.
Isn't that
It
crazy?
may
that
be
like
the oldest movie we've ever shown.
I just think it's crazy that like there are movies that are 100 years old and they still hold up in cinemas with an audience. And also all of these movies are referencing them, and you might love Peter Pan or you might love Batman 66, and then you come and see this and you're like, "Ah, I see that those filmmakers loved this movie as well." And all of a sudden you can have a deeper appreciation for the movies that you love because you understand the filmmakers better.
And thank God we get to see it because for a while this was actually a lost film. Like when they were making movies in this era, Paramount wasn't really thinking about the future. They weren't thinking about like, oh, we're going to be
They did
showing
not
this
think that
100
like
years
in
from
100
now.
years in the Video Archive Cinema Club that 25 people were going to all crowd in here together and experience this. They could not have foreseen that.
So it was lost for almost 30 years and it was rediscovered actually in the George Eastman collection in the 50s.
Oh yeah, George Eastman.
And a 16 mil copy was found in the Disney vaults. And then they kind of compiled those two copies together in 94 to do a restoration, which I believe is the version we're watching. And again, this movie is on DVD. This movie is really great. The ending is actually surprisingly emotional. And the takeaway that I had with this that I think a lot of people are going to be amazed watching a silent film is that you don't even feel the lack of spoken dialogue. You're in it. You're locked in. So I highly recommend the original Peter Pan.
One question though, Matt, I have for you about Peter Pan, because I feel like people might see Peter Pan and be like, "Oh my God, it's Peter Pan." Is this movie family friendly?
In terms of bringing kids to the movies, I actually have noticed at a few of these screenings that we've done here, it's been really great to see kids come with like their parents or grandparents. Like when we showed That Darn Cat, the classic Disney movie, there were kids in the audience. And when we showed The Adventures of Robin Hood last week, there were a number of kids in the audience there with their grandparents there to experience, a different version of Robin Hood than the Disney one they were familiar with.
Again, that is the 1924's Peter Pan, a silent movie showing on Saturday the 23rd, 7 p.m. And as Matt mentioned, we encourage all ages to come. It is a great family experience. Okay, moving on to our last show of the week. We have Saturday, the 23rd's midnight. This is a non-archives midnight, the only one I think of the month.
This is
And
also not a family-friendly movie.
yeah, well, I don't think many people are bringing their kids to midnights, but on Saturday, the 23rd at midnight, we are watching Blood Rage. Matt, take it away.
I have to say, if this isn't a Video Archives movie, it someday should be, because it fits into that oeuvre very well, in my opinion. Here's the premise. A boy kills a man and accuses his twin brother of the murder, and the innocent brother ends up institutionalized while his psychotic twin goes free. 10 years later, the innocent twin escapes, which triggers his brother into killing again.
I like the twin escapes, because then it's like after spending 10 years in a mental asylum for a crime that you did not do, you might be the crazy one then.
Right. Well, the whole thing is like, which of them is actually the killer? It starts with a killing at a drive-in movie theater when they're both kids. And actually, a fun fact is that at this drive-in, a young Ted Raimi is walking around selling condoms, and that's actually Ted Raimi's on-screen film debut as an
No way.
actor.
Do you know what movie's playing when they're watching the...
So it's actually a fictional movie called Slasher, which was the original unused title of Blood Rage.
Oh, that's fun. So it's kind of it's kind of like Halloween 3, where in Halloween 3 you can see Halloween on screen.
Right. And this was also called Nightmare at Shadow Woods. And another interesting thing about this movie is that it mostly takes place at an apartment complex. They're kind of running around leading chase at an apartment complex with the the two twins who are both played amazingly by Mark Soper. And the movie was also at one point going to be called Complex, which I thought might have been cool. That could have had a cool like dual meaning to it.
So wait, did I just hear you right? There's one actor playing both twins.
Yes.
Wow. I love when movies do that, because you could cast twins, or cast siblings, etc. I've seen people do that, but it's really an art form to have one person playing two different characters.
And he's great in this. He's a lot of fun. He plays the sort of like timid, like, oh my God, my crazy brother's coming back, and just like pure maniacal slasher energy on the other end of that spectrum. The main reason that I'm showing this movie is because it is probably the most iconic Thanksgiving horror movie ever made. I mean, now we have Eli Roth's Thanksgiving, of course, and there was the trailer for Thanksgiving, which long preceded that as part of Grindhouse. But before Thanksgiving actually existed as a movie, this was sort of the go-to Thanksgiving horror movie. And it has a great cover where there's a reflection of a woman screaming off of a bleeding knife. It's a very almost iconically rare Prism VHS release. It's sort of considered to be a Grail VHS tape of sorts. And yeah, I just think it's really perfect for the season. It was shot in 1983 in Jacksonville, Florida, released in 1987. And it's just pure 80s horror. And it's also known for its sort of like unofficial tagline in which the killer looks at his bleeding weapon and said, "That isn't cranberry sauce."
My God, this sounds like the perfect Thanksgiving movie to like get you in the flavor of the holiday season. Well, that's this week at the Video Archive Cinema Club. Remember, patrons get this episode one day early for free over at patreon.com/videoarchives. If you'd like to get your tickets to any of these shows that we mentioned, you can do so at
VistaTheaterHollywood.com.
And as always, follow the Video Archive Cinema Club on Instagram at
Video Archives Club
for updates on showtimes. Bye, guys. See you next week.
See you later.
This calendar episode was produced by the Video Archives podcast and hosted by Gala Avery and Matt Landsman. Additional audio editing by Eric Clapp. Find even more of Video Archives on our Patreon, patreon.com/videoarchives. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved.